How do we make sense of the turbulence and the upheavals of our times? Just look at the stock market, and it captures the volatility, the ups and downs, the unpredictability due to tariffs, trade wars, the Fed, the wars being fought in Gaza, in Ukraine. President Trump seems to personify the very concept and essence of disruption. That doesn't mean disruptions are bad. But how are we to understand it all? Because one thing is for sure. Human nature, the human being, is unnerved, is shaken up when things are not predictable. And literally, on a daily basis, you can wake up in the morning and have no idea what's coming. In unprecedented ways. But everything has a deeper story. So please join me as we discuss the volatility of our times. What lies ahead? Post-Passover, Israel, Trump, and the upheavals of our times. Hi, this is Simon Jacobson, and we will be discussing what lies ahead, post-Passover, Israel, Trump, and the upheavals of our times. This program is dedicated by the Ezra family, Shira and Itzik, in cherished memory of Jerry Finkelstein, beloved father of Shira, who dedicated his life to nurturing family bonds, upholding integrity, and embracing his Jewish identity. It is also dedicated in honor of Alexander Poltorak. You look around at the world today, and literally on a daily basis, we're dealing with unprecedented turbulence and upheaval. Just look at the stock market. It's a perfect snapshot. The ups and downs, the gyrations, the volatility due to tariffs, trade wars, unpredictable state of the economy, the Fed, and of course Mr. Trump, President Trump himself, personifies disruption. Whether it's through Doge or his executive orders about the border and so many other matters. And many of these disruptions are actually positives. But I'm not going to get into a political debate about this. But how are we to look at it? Because the fact is, human nature is unnerved when things are not predictable. When you wake up in the morning and anything could happen that day. Of course, should mention the wars in the Gaza, Middle East, Ukraine. Everyone senses that things are changing. And as I've discussed many times in this program, and many programs, and many of the classes I've given talks, we are living in an age of disruption. There's no question that we're now a quarter way through the new millennium, the new century, I should say, the year 2025. 9/11 was right at the outset, at the dawn of the 21st century. Take technology, now AI, and you see disruption time and again. How Amazon and the internet have disrupted how we buy and sell, commerce, retail. And it's only in its infancy. So how are we to look at all of this? Because as I said, if we don't have context and perspective, and you're not going to bury your head in the ground, can be very disorienting. But everything has a deeper story, and that's what we want to talk about. And it's interesting. Just as we're going through these throes of change, we're coming from the holiday of Passover. What is the meaning of the word Passover? To pass over. In modern lingo, transcendence, to transcend. Whenever you're transcending, whenever you're traveling, especially in a transcendent way, there is going to be disruption. That's the very definition. When you stay in a lethargic state where you are, a stationary place, then things are very predictable. But as soon as you make a move, and especially a big move, especially a transcendent one, there's going to be upheaval. Now we have to make it clear, not all upheaval is a negative thing. I would say most of it is not negative. It's all about context. Every change in this history, every metamorphosis, every growth, every revolution is change. But revolutions are, by definition, not comfortable. What makes it uncomfortable, however, and keeps it uncomfortable is if we don't learn how to navigate. If, for example, everything around you is moving and you decide you're going to stay in one place, you're going to be in trouble. So you have to learn to move. We'll go with the flow. We have to see change as opportunity. And the fact is, unless we live in a perfect world, we have to welcome the upheavals and disruptions from time to time. Look at our own personal lives. Who doesn't go through disruptions and upheavals in their lives? On a microcosmic level. First, the trauma of birth. After 9 months of peaceful, nurturing, protected and submerged in the embryonic fluids, a child is born, and it is a serious transition. The umbilical cord is cut. A new life. You're no longer being fed and breathing through your mother. You begin an independent life. And just the very journey through the birth canal is traumatic. But that's what birthing is about. And there's pain involved. Then through the cycles of life, the early formative years, I don't like the expression the terrible twos, but nevertheless, as a child begins to develop, there are going to be all kinds of changes. And that's part of the beauty. You don't want a child growing and without any change, that everything is... No, a child has to be mobile, more than mobile, constantly moving about with enthusiasm, with free abandon. And then there's, of course, the awkwardness of adolescence and growing into an adult, leaving home for the first time. Let's go back. The first time a child leaves home to go to school, summer camp, and then let's go back to the adulthood. Leaves home to go either to dorm or ultimately move out, build their own family. So through life, we will be going through journey. Life and the journey are synonymous. And journeys means there's movement. Movement means there's change. Change means there's certain measure of risk and unpredictability. But the key is to navigate. And the same is true on the macrocosmic level. I know we look at what we call natural disasters, we call them disasters. But what would the world be like if there were no hurricanes or earthquakes or tsunamis? They're part of the balance of life. Where it becomes perhaps a disaster is if human beings are right smack in the way of these powerful tremors that keep the world in balance. So you could think of it like cleaning house. Every new pioneering experience is going to include some form of upheaval, disruption, and volatility. Now, some of it is natural, some of it is man-made. Not all of it is positive. We've seen terrible wars. We've seen terrible injustices perpetrated. World War II, World War I, even in our time, October 7th. Yet there, those that are guilty will be held accountable. But still, for us, for those on the receiving end, we cannot become victims. So we have to also learn to ride those waves, to ride those turbulent waves, and learn from them and grow through them. So the key thing to remember, my friends, is that there's a larger narrative. And the second thing to remember, that it's a healthy thing when things are moving. That doesn't mean it's always painless, and it doesn't mean it's always pleasant. But that's part of life. The waves, the ebb and flow, the ups and downs, the twists and turns. And some of them will surprise us. And often the greatest surprises bring the greatest developments. So the key is to find our equilibrium as we ride. Ever look at a boat, a ship? Every time I've been on a ship, I always look at the waves and I see the ship, how it was. And it's one of the earliest technologies, ships. But they've learned to build a bow, they've learned to build a ship in a way that knows how to ride the waves. And sometimes there's a heavy storm, but good ships will withstand that. So the key is navigation. There's a powerful statement that our sages tell us. A person should always be flexible like a reed and not inflexible like a cedar tree. Cedar tree is very powerful, very impressive. But when a storm comes, it's the reed that is guaranteed to withstand the storm because it flows with the wind. It bends in the wind. It has flexibility, dexterity, and therefore resilience. So when we think about life, often because we like to be in control, we think, I'm going to control the circumstances. You're going to control the waves. A storm comes your way, you want to control the storm? Good luck. That's not what you control. You control how you react to it, how you adjust your flexibility. And it's those people that know how to survive and thrive through anything. Because even when there's a down, there's a setback, they learn to use that as well as an asset to propel them to another place. Maybe it's a time for introspection, maybe it's a time to evaluate, but they navigate. As I've often pointed out, the good swimmer versus the bad swimmer is not one that never faces storms. It's one that knows how to navigate the storm. A bad swimmer, there's a storm, a high tide, a strong tide. So without experience, you can fight it to the point that it drains your energy, and we know what can happen then. Whereas someone who navigates, rides, is not going to fight a strong tide or a storm. You float, and then the time comes when you thrust forward and you move ahead. In life, that is true life. But we can also create the illusion, especially due to modern technology. I'm in control. I have a remote. I sit on my couch. I'm the couch potato in my couch, and I just press the remote. I control everything. I press a button. I get my orders delivered. Everything seems so easy, but the truth is, those are all technical. That's the technical ease. The emotions of our lives, the relationships, the deeper, transcendent experiences, yes, transcendent, will always come with a measure of you not being able to control the circumstances. But you do control how you navigate them. So the 2 points to sum up again, number one is that life is mobile and constantly on the move. And the move also includes times of serious change, transitions, metamorphoses, growth, new paradigms. And secondly, look at the bigger picture. Look at what is growing. You see a crack in an egg. Don't just see the crack, see the chick that's emerging from the egg. You see a seed rotting in the ground, deteriorating. Look at what it's blossoming into. You see the pain of birth. Don't just look at the birth pangs. Look at what it's giving birth to. The frustration that leads to creativity. Don't look at the frustration, look at the creativity that it creates. Part of the process is that shift. And the greater the growth, the greater the innovation, the greater the vacuum or the disruption that will be, because it has to move from one paradigm to another. Now, the wise one anticipates this and doesn't wait till the disruption disrupts our lives. You disrupt yourself as you adjust to the new realities. Those that don't see that often will be shaken up by the disruptions around us, by these upheavals. So Passover teaches us a tremendous lesson. It was a very horrible time. For over 2 centuries, the Jewish people were enslaved, but then they were freed. And it says the more they were oppressed, the more they thrived. They grew through the pain. Not that they wanted it, not that they justified, not that they welcomed it, but once it's there, you grow through it. It's a challenge that forces you to become far greater, and they became a nation. A new nation that would change the world. A nation that would bring values, the values we all cherish today. Freedom, human rights, charity, kindness, altruism, all forged out of the deepest form of pain. That seed did deteriorate, but the deterioration brought tremendous growth. That's the story of Passover, the story of transcendence. And therefore, that carries over and translates into all events going on in the world today. October 7th was a terrible time. Anyone even reading about the atrocities simply can't stomach it, especially if you see some of the images. The question, however, is what comes from that? No one wanted that. People's lives have been shattered, families destroyed. There are still hostages. But the only way you can, I don't want to even use the word justify or redeem, maybe redeem a bit. The only way is if we become a greater because of it. We've seen the enemy, we see what they're capable of. So you have to eradicate them entirely. We have to embrace the values that really define us, define the best of us. Fighting hate with love, fighting darkness with light. And we have to transform the world. Look at what happened after World War II. Not perfection, but after over 100 million people were killed in the 2 world wars. And many, many more injured. Physically, emotionally. The world was almost destroyed. Talking about the Jewish people, 1/3 of our people were decimated. It became an unprecedented renaissance that followed. The growth and the prosperity and the technologies and the breakthroughs all happened second half of the last century. Not all, some happened earlier. That's how we have to look at true setback, true tragedies. Again, it's not welcoming it after the fact, how we navigate. How we become better, more united, more committed. And we wake up from our reverie, from our complacency and apathy, and we sense the urgency. I look around at the world today, tremendous wake-up call, but there's also a tremendous void. Look at young people. What are they ready to fight for? Besides video games, sports, and their own interests and pleasures. Now, do we need war? Do we need to be attacked to begin to crystallize our values? Absolutely not. But often that's how it happens. So going back to the message for Israel and really for the world, I would like to believe, and I do believe, that this will lead to a better world, where Israel has been woken up and realized what they're dealing with. But it's ultimately going to lead to ultimate peace. Because when you do eradicate evil, when you do eradicate Nazis, you can build a better world. When you're living in delusion or minimizing, then that lack of realism is the problem. So I'm firmly of the opinion that there will be peace with Saudi Arabia, with other countries, and yes, terrorism and evil will be eradicated as much as possible. But we have to be wise and navigate. And then we come to Trump, President Trump. If you think about it, it couldn't be more fitting. The perfect personality for an age of disruption. Whether you love him or you hate him, you cannot ignore the fact that he's a disruptor. An outsider, does not go by the rules of Washington. And again, for good or for bad. But maybe that's exactly what's needed at a time like this. In the 20th century, it was the world wars. Maybe now it's Trump. And I want to make it clear, I'm not equating Trump to the wars. I'm equating Trump to disruption. Why is it far better? Because it's bloodless. Does that mean no one is in pain? That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be mistakes. But you need to clean house from time to time. And it's not whether he has it all figured out and there's a method to this madness or not. The fact is the end result. When the headlines will be written in 10 years from now, 20 years, the age of disruption. Look at the internet. Is that a positive or a negative? Well, many people have lost their jobs. Today there are certain industries that don't exist. Find a music store. You can buy it all online. The retail industries, which are still going through change. But I think when you look at the big narrative, you realize a bigger picture is emerging. What will AI do to the workplace? So while those of us hold on to the past, yes, it's uncomfortable. But every past gives birth to a future. Mistakes happen. There is selfishness, there's greed. No one's denying any of that. But there's also the great growth that comes out of it all. So when you think about it, in that context, the upheavals and the turbulence of our times can be seen exactly as that: turbulence, upheavals, disturbances, disruptions, or it can be seen as the birthing of a greater world. And that's up to us. That's completely up to us. So what lies ahead? What lies ahead is the script that you will write. You don't control the circumstance, but you control the destiny, how you'll navigate it. We are active players, active participants in the unfolding drama of our own destinies, of the world's destiny. And that's very exciting if you think about it, for those of us that have that vision. Obviously, it can be quite disturbing for someone that said, hey, I didn't need all of this. Why are you rocking the boat? But I see this as the advent of a new age. Call it the spiritual revolution, that following the agricultural, the industrial, and then the information revolutions, we are entering into the spiritual revolution, where most of our mundane and menial labor will be done by machines. And we can explore true transcendence. But there's a discomfort involved because we're moving from a materialistic world into a spiritual one. Now, I'm not naive. I'm not suggesting everybody's spiritual and everyone's doing it for pure intentions. But it's a trend that is moving from an egotistical, self-interest, greedy world into a more giving world, a gentler world, a more sensitive world. And a world, yes, where there'll be less evil and destruction to the point that it's eradicated. A world filled with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea. And the most powerful part of it is that you and I can make it happen right now. And that begins with our own choices. To look around us, instead of feeling completely unnerved, disoriented, disturbed by the disturbances around us, say, these are the disruptions that are part of growth. And that's how I'm going to see them. I will navigate through them, grow through them. Will there be some things we can't expect? Absolutely. Is it more comfortable just to predict everything? More comfortable, but not more meaningful. And definitely not more growthful. That's where we are, my dear friends. So it's a way of looking at existence, at your life, with a new lens. Instead of at the moment, looking through the myopic perspective of the moment, of the space to look at the bigger picture, the narrative, like the bird's eye view. And that should in turn inform the small picture, the immediate, rather than the other way around. And that's by us taking control of our spiritual lives, taking all the events around us, even those that we didn't expect, and turning it into assets that help us soar, spread our wings, soar, and reach unprecedented new heights. We will see in our lifetimes tremendous change. And there will be those that resist, there will be those that stand on the sidelines, but there will be those of us that can proudly say we were part of the revolution, we were part of the change. We were part of the solution, not part of the problem. This has been Simon Jacobson, MeaningfulLife.com. Please subscribe to our offerings. If you've enjoyed this, please share. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your comments. And of course, we always can use your support on all levels. Support with suggestions, ideas, financial support. Go to meaningfullife.com/donate. Subscribe again to our offerings. Subscribe to our robust, growing YouTube channel. And I look forward to sharing the next program with you. You can see our entire calendar of events at meaningfullife.com. Be blessed and be well. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by the Meaningful Life Center. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at meaningfullife.com/donate.